2 hours had passed since Jake Morrison declared his annoyance. The conference room had become his command center. He sat at the table with his data pad, typing constantly. Amy Brooks sat next to him, pulling up files and sending messages. High Merchant Zekthor and his delegation were still there. They had tried to leave twice, but Jake had politely asked them to stay. "We have so much to discuss," he had said with a calm smile. That smile made Zekthor nervous. The Velcrin had stopped laughing. They were watching Jake type, and with each passing minute they looked more worried. "Ambassador Morrison," Zekthor said, trying to sound confident. "Perhaps we have gotten off to a bad start. Maybe we should reschedule these negotiations for another time." Jake didn't look up from his datapad. "Oh, I don't think that's necessary. In fact, I think we're making excellent progress now." "Progress?" Zekthor asked. "We haven't discussed anything, haven't we?" Jake finally looked up. "Amy, could you tell the High Merchant what we've been working on?" Amy smiled. It was the kind of smile that made predators nervous. "Certainly, sir. In the past 2 hours, we have filed 17,342 formal complaints with the Galactic Trade Commission." Zekthor's mandibles clicked together in shock. 17,000? That's impossible. No one can file that many complaints in 2 hours. "I can when I'm annoyed," Jake said simply. "Each complaint is properly documented with evidence, timestamps, and legal citations." "Would you like to hear what they're about?" The Velcrin didn't answer. They just stared. Amy pulled up a list on the large screen in the conference room. "We'll start with the minor violations. Improper waste disposal on stations 7, 12, and 18. Failure to file correct cargo manifests on 43 separate occasions. Trading with sanctioned parties in violation of Council Resolution 5092. "Those are technical violations," Zekthor protested. "Everyone commits small errors like that." "Perhaps," Jake said. "But when you add them all up, they become quite significant. Especially when someone takes the time to document every single one." Amy continued reading from the list. Bribery of station officials, tax evasion in 7 different systems, improper safety standards on Velcrin vessels. "Shall I continue?" "This is harassment," Zekthor said, standing up. "You cannot do this. I can," Jake replied calmly. "And I am. Every complaint I've filed is completely valid under galactic law. The Trade Commission will have to investigate each one. That's their job." One of the other Velcrin leaned over to whisper to Zekthor. Jake couldn't hear what they were saying, but he saw the fear in their movements. "How long will these investigations take?" Zekthor asked quietly. "Well, that depends," Jake said. "A simple investigation might take 6 months. A complex one could take years." 17,000 investigations? He paused. "I'd estimate 7 to 10 years. Maybe longer." 10 years? Zekthor's voice went high. "Our trading operations will be frozen for 10 years? "Only the ones under investigation," Amy said cheerfully. "So basically all of them. Any assets related to the complaints will be locked until the investigations are complete. That's standard procedure." Jake started typing again. "Oh, and I've also requested a full audit of your trading practices for the past decade. That was approved about an hour ago. The audit team will arrive next week." Zekthor sat back down. He looked at his fellow Velcrin. They looked back at him. None of them seemed to know what to do. "You're destroying us," Zekthor said finally, over a datapad and some insults. "I'm not destroying anything," Jake said. "I'm simply ensuring that all galactic laws are being followed properly. If your operations are legal, you have nothing to worry about. The investigations will clear you. But 10 years? Yes, 10 years is a long time," Jake agreed. "Of course we could speed things up if we had cooperation. If someone were to, say, provide detailed records of all trading activities. If someone were to voluntarily correct any violations. If someone were to show genuine remorse for their actions." Zekthor understood. This was a negotiation now. But the terms had changed dramatically. Jake's communicator beeped. He looked at the message and smiled. "Ah, excellent. Captain Grant has sent me the records I requested. Amy, could you add these to our complaint files?" "What records?" Zekthor asked, his voice shaking. 5 years of interactions between the Velcrin Collective and human vessels," Jake explained. "Every time your ships encountered ours. Every communication. Every incident. It's fascinating reading, really. Did you know that Velcrin vessels have refused to answer 47 distress calls from human ships? That's a violation of the Space Safety Protocols, Article 12, Section 4. Amy was typing now too. Adding those to the complaint list, sir. That brings us to 18,103 complaints. Stop, Zekthor said. Please, just stop. Jake stopped typing. He looked at the Velcrin merchant. I'm listening. What do you want? Zekthor asked. What will it take to make this end? I want you to understand something, Jake said, his voice still calm but with an edge to it now. You thought humans were weak. You thought we were primitive. You thought you could insult us, waste our time, and destroy our property without consequences. I was wrong, Zekthor said quickly. I see that now. Do you? Jake leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, I see someone who's only sorry because he got caught. I see someone who's only afraid because he's facing consequences. I don't see genuine understanding or respect. The room was quiet for a moment. Outside, the station seemed almost empty now. Most of the ships had left. Only a few remained, and one of them was the Defiant. What would you have me do? Zekthor asked. How can I show understanding? Jake sat back in his chair. That's a good question. Amy, what do you think? Amy pretended to consider. Well, sir, I think genuine understanding would involve a public apology, and perhaps some kind of restitution for the destroyed property, and maybe a commitment to better relations in the future. Those are good suggestions, Jake said. He started typing again. But I'm still annoyed. So I think I'll keep filing complaints while we discuss the details. How many more complaints can you possibly file? One of the other Velcrin asked desperately. Jake looked at him. How many do you think? I have 70 years of human Velcrin history to review. I have thousands of trade regulations to cross-reference. I have environmental laws, safety codes, labor standards, and diplomatic protocols to examine. I could do this for months. Zekthor looked sick. Or, Jake said, we could reach an agreement, right now, today. An agreement that includes fair trade terms, mutual respect, and a commitment to follow all galactic laws. What do you think? Zekthor looked at his fellow Velcrin. They had a quick, whispered conversation in their own language. Jake waited patiently, still typing occasionally. Finally, Zekthor turned back to Jake. We agree. We will negotiate in good faith. We will offer fair terms. We will apologize publicly. Just please stop filing complaints. Jake stopped typing. He looked at Amy. What do you think, Lieutenant? Should we stop? Amy appeared to consider it. I suppose we could pause the complaint filing, sir. We have 18,000 filed already. That should be enough to keep the Trade Commission busy. 18,000 should work, Jake agreed. He saved his work and closed his data pad. All right, High Merchant Zekthor. Let's talk about a real trade agreement, one based on mutual respect and fair terms. Zekthor nodded eagerly. Yes. Whatever you think is fair. Good, Jake said. Let's start with the basics. Equal trade rates. No insults, no games, just honest business. Can you do that? Yes, Ambassador Morrison. We can do that. Excellent. Jake pulled out a clean data pad. Then let's begin. And remember, I'm still a little annoyed, so let's make sure we get this right the first time. The negotiations began again, but this time the Velcrin were very, very polite, and they agreed to almost everything Jake suggested. Outside the conference room, the few remaining aliens on the station watched and waited. They had all learned an important lesson today. An annoyed human was not someone you wanted as your enemy. Captain Lisa Grant was in her quarters when the message arrived. She was reading a book, trying to relax after a long day. The Earth vessel Defiant was docked at the Galactic Council space station for routine maintenance. Everything was supposed to be quiet and peaceful. Then her communicator beeped. It was an urgent message marked with a red priority flag. Lisa set down her book and opened the message. It was from Ambassador Korvax, the Drexian representative. The message was short. Please come to my office immediately. It's about Ambassador Morrison. Lisa felt her stomach tighten. She grabbed her uniform jacket and headed for the door. As she walked through the corridors of the station, she noticed something strange. The halls were crowded with aliens, all moving quickly toward the docking bays. They looked scared. A group of Lumina floated past her, moving faster than she had ever seen them move before. Their normally calm blue glow was flickering with orange streaks. That meant fear. Excuse me, Lisa called out to one of them. What's happening? Human announced annoyance, the Lumina said quickly. Must leave, sorry, very sorry. Then it floated away at top speed. Lisa started walking faster. Then she started running. Ambassador Korvax's office was on the diplomatic level. When Lisa arrived, she found the Drexian pacing back and forth. His scales were standing straight up and his tail was lashing from side to side. These were signs of extreme stress. Ambassador Korvax, Lisa said, slightly out of breath. What's going on? Your message said it was about Jake Morrison. Sit down, Captain, Korvax said. His voice was rough and deep. We have a situation. Lisa sat in one of the chairs. It was designed for Drexians, so it was too large for her, but she didn't care. What kind of situation? Your ambassador was in a trade negotiation with the Velkrin, Korvax began. The Velkrin were not respectful. They insulted him many times. They destroyed his research. And then what? And then he said he was really getting annoyed. Lisa blinked. That's it?
That's the emergency?
Korvax stopped pacing and looked at her with his large yellow eyes. Captain Grant, how long have you been in space? 5 years, Lisa answered. Why? Then you don't know. You weren't here for the contact wars. Korvax walked to his desk and pulled up a holographic display. I need to show you something. I need you to understand why half the station is evacuating right now. The hologram showed a star map. Lisa recognized it as a map from 70 years ago, when humans first made contact with other species in the galaxy. When humans first came to space, Korvax said, we didn't know what to make of you. You had no natural weapons, no armor, no telepathy, no special abilities at all. Many species thought humans would be easy to conquer. I know this part of history, Lisa said. The Krell Empire attacked us. Yes, the Krell. Korvax changed the hologram. Now it showed a battle. The Krell destroyed one of your colony ships. 3,000 humans died. Everyone expected your species to surrender or at least negotiate. The hologram showed more battles. Ships exploding, planets burning. But humans didn't surrender, Korvax continued. Instead, one of your commanders, a man named Greg Palmer, sent a message to the Krell Emperor. The message said, okay, now I'm annoyed. Lisa leaned forward. She had heard of Greg Palmer. He was a legend in Earth's military, but she didn't know this story. The Krell laughed at the message, Korvax said. They thought it was a joke. How could one annoyed human be a threat? So they kept attacking. They destroyed another human station. This one was a medical facility. Sick people, children, all dead. The hologram shifted again. Now it showed something different. Not big battles, but small operations, sneaky attacks, clever traps. That's when we learned what an annoyed human can do. Korvax said quietly, your species didn't fight with honor. You didn't follow the traditional rules of war. You did whatever worked. Ambushes, sabotage, psychological warfare. You turned the Krell's own tactics against them. Lisa watched the hologram. She saw human ships appearing out of nowhere, striking fast, then disappearing. She saw Krell supply lines collapsing. She saw Krell commanders making mistakes, falling into traps. Within 6 months, Korvax said, the Krell Empire was broken. Not destroyed, but broken. Your commander Palmer didn't stop when they tried to surrender. He kept going until every Krell military base was captured. Until every Krell war leader was in prison. Until the Krell people themselves rose up and overthrew their emperor. I didn't know it happened that fast, Lisa said softly. It was terrifying, Korvax admitted. We had never seen anything like it. Other species fight for land, for resources, for honor. But humans fight because they're annoyed. And once a human is annoyed, they don't stop. They don't get tired. They don't forget. He changed the hologram again. This time it showed another incident. 10 years after the Krell War, a small species called the Yix decided to play a prank. They stole a human research vessel. They thought it was funny. What happened? Lisa asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. A human lawyer named Carol Martinez spent 12 years hunting down everyone involved. She didn't use weapons. She used laws. She filed complaints, lawsuits, and legal challenges. She buried the Yix government in paperwork. Their economy collapsed from legal fees, all because they annoyed one human. Lisa sat back in her chair. So when Jake said he was annoyed, every species that knows human history started evacuating, Korvax finished. Because we know what comes next. An annoyed human is more dangerous than an angry one. Anger burns out. Annoyance lasts forever. What will Jake do? Lisa asked. I don't know, Korvax said. But I know this. The Velkrin made a terrible mistake. They annoyed a human diplomat. A human who knows every law, every regulation, every rule in the Galactic Code. And now he's going to use all of that against them. Lisa's communicator beeped again. She looked at the message. It was from Jake Morrison. The message was simple. Captain Grant, please prepare the Defiant for possible deployment. Also, please send me our complete records of all interactions with the Velcrin over the past 5 years. He's already started, Lisa said. Korvax nodded. The Velcrin don't understand yet. They think this is just about trade negotiations. They don't realize that they've started something that won't end until they surrender completely. Should I try to stop him? Lisa asked. Can you? Korvax replied. Lisa thought about it. She had known Jake Morrison for 3 years. He was patient, kind, and friendly. But she had also seen his files. She knew about his service record. She knew that before he became a diplomat, he had been in Earth's military intelligence. He knew how to fight wars without firing a single shot. No, Lisa said finally. I don't think I can stop him. And honestly, I'm not sure I should. The Velcrin did destroy his research and insult our entire species. Then I suggest you prepare your ship, Korvax said. Things are going to get complicated. And Captain? Yes? When this is over, please remind your ambassador that some of us are his friends. We would prefer not to annoy him, Lisa smiled. I'll pass that along. She left Korvax's office and headed back to the Defiant. As she walked, she saw more aliens evacuating. The station was emptying fast. By tomorrow, it would probably be half deserted, all because one human said he was annoyed. Lisa reached her ship and called her crew to the bridge. They had work to do. And somewhere on this station, Jake Morrison was typing away on his datapad, filing complaint after complaint. The galaxy was about to be reminded of an important lesson. Never, ever annoy a human. The conference room on the Galactic Council space station was large and cold. Jake Morrison sat at the long table, his hands folded in front of him. He had been sitting in this same chair for 3 weeks now. 3 long, frustrating weeks. Across from him sat High Merchant Zekthor of the Velcrin Collective. The Velcrin looked like a giant insect with 4 arms and shiny black eyes that never seemed to blink. Zekthor was tapping 2 of his clawed fingers on the table. The sound was annoying. Jake suspected the alien knew it was annoying. Next to Jake sat Lieutenant Amy Brooks. She was taking notes on her datapad, recording everything that happened in these meetings. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen. She had filled dozens of files already. So, Ambassador Morrison, Zekthor said, his voice making a clicking sound when he spoke. Once again, we must discuss your species' ridiculous requests. Jake took a slow breath. We're asking for standard trade rates, the same rates you give to the Drexians and the Lumina. But the Drexians and the Lumina are civilized species, Zekthor replied. They have been part of the galactic community for thousands of years. Humans are still children, stumbling around in the dark. This was not the first insult. Jake had heard many over the past 3 weeks. The Velcrin seemed to enjoy making fun of humans. They called Earth a dirtball. They said human technology was barely functional. They laughed at human food, human culture, and human history. Jake had stayed calm through all of it. He was a diplomat. Staying calm was his job. Amy leaned close to him and whispered, "That's the 47th direct insult. I have them all recorded." Jake nodded slightly. He looked around the room. Several other species had representatives here too. They were observers, watching the negotiations. There was a Drexian in the corner, tall and covered in gray scales. 2 Lumina floated near the ceiling, their bodies glowing softly with blue light. A Krell warrior stood by the door, his red armor shining under the lights. Perhaps, Zekthor continued, we should revisit these negotiations in another 100 years. Maybe by then your species will have something worth trading. Jake's jaw tightened just a little. Amy noticed. She knew that sign. We have plenty to offer, Jake said quietly. Our agricultural techniques, our medical research, our computational systems, all of these have value. To you, perhaps, Zekthor said with a laugh. To us, they are curiosities, toys, nothing more. The other Velcrin at the table laughed too. There were 3 of them, all dressed in expensive robes that shimmered with different colors. Jake opened his mouth to respond, but Zekthor held up one of his clawed hands. Wait. Before you speak, let me show you something. The Velcrin reached across the table. In his hand was a glass container filled with a green liquid. It looked like acid. Jake's datapad was sitting on the table in front of him. The datapad contained 6 months of research. Notes on Velcrin culture, their economy, their laws. Everything Jake needed for these negotiations. Oh, how clumsy of me, Zekthor said. He tilted the container. The green liquid poured out, splashing directly onto Jake's datapad. The device sparked and smoked. The screen went black. Within seconds, it was completely destroyed. Zekthor and the other Velcrin laughed loudly. My apologies, Ambassador. Perhaps you should invest in better technology, something less fragile. Amy's hand moved to Jake's arm, but he didn't react. He just stared at the ruined datapad. 6 months of work. Gone. The Drexian observer in the corner suddenly stood up. His scales were standing on end, a sign of alarm. The 2 Lumina began drifting toward the door. The Krell warrior's hand moved to his weapon. You know, Zekthor said, still laughing. Perhaps this is a sign. Perhaps humans are simply too primitive to handle these advanced trade agreements. Maybe you should go back to your little planet and play with your dirt. Jake Morrison reached out very slowly. He picked up his stylus, the pen he used to take notes. He set it down on the table with great care. Then he looked directly at Zekthor. Now I'm really getting annoyed, Jake said. His voice was very calm, very quiet. The laughter stopped. The Drexian observer was already at the door. He hit the exit button and practically ran into the hallway. The 2 Lumina floated through the doorway so fast they left trails of light behind them. The Krell warrior backed away, his eyes wide. Within 30 seconds, every non-human in the room except the Velcrin delegation was gone. The door kept opening and closing as different species rushed to leave. Zekthor looked confused. What? What is happening? Jake didn't answer. He tapped his personal communicator. Amy, could you please retrieve the backup files from the ship? Yes, sir, Amy said. She was smiling now. It was not a nice smile. Also, please pull up the Galactic Trade Commission regulations, all of them. I want to review sections 47 through 200. Right away, sir. Zekthor's confidence was fading. He looked at his fellow Velcrin. They looked back at him, unsure. Ambassador Morrison, I don't understand. Why did everyone leave? Jake opened his personal datapad. This one was much smaller, but it still worked perfectly. He began typing. His fingers moved fast across the screen. You destroyed my research, Jake said, not looking up. You insulted my species 47 times. You wasted 3 weeks of my time with bad faith negotiations, and you just called my planet a dirtball. Yes, well, perhaps I was too harsh, Zekthor said. He was starting to sound nervous. Maybe we can— I'm annoyed, Jake said again. Really, genuinely annoyed. The door opened one more time. Ambassador Korvax, the Drexian, poked his head in. He looked at Jake, then at the Velcrin. Hi, Merchant Zekthor, I strongly suggest you leave this station. Now. Why? Zekthor demanded. What is going on? Korvax's scales rippled with something that might have been fear. Because he's annoyed. Don't you understand what that means? It's just a human, one of the other Velcrin said. What can one annoyed human do? Korvax looked at them with something like pity. You really don't know, do you? You don't know your history. Jake was still typing. He hadn't stopped. Amy was pulling up files, hundreds of them, thousands of them. Documents, regulations, laws, codes, procedures. I'm going to need to file some paperwork, Jake said calmly. Amy, how many complaint forms can we submit in one day? As many as you need, sir, Amy replied. Korvax shook his head and left. The door closed behind him. Zekthor stood up. This is ridiculous. You cannot threaten us with paperwork. Jake finally looked up. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold. I'm not threatening you. I'm just doing my job. Very thoroughly. The typing continued. Click, click, click on the datapad. Outside the conference room, alarms began to sound. Not emergency alarms, departure alarms. Ships were leaving the station. Lots of ships. Inside the room, Jake Morrison kept working. He was annoyed now. Really annoyed. And the galaxy was about to remember why that was a very bad thing. While Jake Morrison was busy with his complaints and negotiations, trouble was brewing in a different part of space. The outer reaches was a distant area where human mining operations extracted valuable minerals from asteroids. It was far from the major trade routes, far from military protection, and far from help. That made it a perfect target. The mining station was called Outpost Charlie. It was small, with only 47 humans working there. They had basic defenses, nothing serious. They were miners, not soldiers. The attack came without warning. 5 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and immediately opened fire. The mining station's shields held for about 30 seconds before collapsing. Alarms blared. People ran for the escape pods. Station Commander Ben Cooper was in the control room when the attack started. He was a big man with gray hair and steady hands. He had been mining in space for 20 years and had seen pirates before. But something about this attack felt different. "Get everyone to the pods," he shouted to his crew. "Send a distress signal to Earth Naval Command." "Already done, sir," his communications officer replied. "They're responding now." On the main screen, Ben could see the attacking ships. They weren't the usual pirates. These ships had military-grade weapons and moved with tactical precision. Mercenaries, he realized, professionals. Who hired you? Ben broadcast on an open channel. "What do you want?" One of the mercenary ships responded. The voice that came through was rough and spoke in broken human language. "Human station. You surrender now. We take cargo. You live. And if we don't surrender?" Ben asked, though he was already signaling his people to evacuate. "Then you not live," the voice said simply. The last of the miners were reaching the escape pods. Ben stayed at his post, buying them time. "I need to know who hired you," he said, keeping the mercenary talking. "Velcrin pay good money. Say humans need lesson. Say you alone out here. Say easy job." Ben felt his blood run cold. The Velcrin. They were so desperate to hurt humanity that they had hired mercenaries to attack a mining station. "You made a mistake," Ben said quietly. "No mistake. We have big ships. You have no weapons. Easy job." "That's not the mistake I'm talking about," Ben replied. "The mistake is that you attacked humans. Do you know what happens when you attack humans?" The mercenary laughed. "Humans die, like always." "No," Ben said. He could see on his sensors that help was already on the way. "Humans get annoyed." He launched himself toward the last escape pod. Behind him, the station exploded as the mercenaries finished their attack. But all the miners were safe. They were floating in space in their escape pods, waiting for rescue. It didn't take long. The Defiant arrived first, dropping out of faster-than-light travel with 3 support ships. Captain Lisa Grant was on the bridge, and she was not in a good mood. "All ships, battle stations," she ordered. "Scan for survivors first, then deal with the mercenaries." Her tactical officer looked at the scanner. "Captain, I'm reading 5 mercenary vessels. They're heavily armed, and I'm picking up 47 escape pods, all showing life signs." "Good," Lisa said. "Bring the pods in, and someone open a channel to those mercenary ships." The channel opened. Lisa's face appeared on every mercenary ship's screen. She looked calm, but her eyes were hard. "Attention, mercenary vessels. This is Captain Lisa Grant of the Earth ship Defiant. You have attacked a human civilian station. You have 30 seconds to surrender or we will open fire." The mercenary leader's voice came back. He didn't sound worried. "You are 4 ships. We are 5. You should leave while you can." Lisa smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "You really don't know, do you? You don't know what you've done. We destroyed your station. We completed our job." "No," Lisa said. "You annoyed us. There's a difference." Before the mercenary could respond, Lisa cut the channel. "Tactical, weapons free. Target their engines. I want them alive." The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes. The Defiant and its support ships moved with precision. They weren't the biggest ships in space, but they were fast and their crews were well trained. Within minutes, all 5 mercenary ships were disabled, their engines destroyed and their weapons offline. Lisa had the mercenary crews brought aboard the Defiant. They were locked in the cargo bay, surrounded by armed guards. She went down to talk to them personally. The mercenary leader was a Krell warrior. His red armor was scratched and dented from the battle. He looked up at Lisa with grudging respect. "You fight well," he said. "For humans?" "Thank you," Lisa replied. "Now tell me about the Velcrin. How much did they pay you?" The Krell hesitated. Mercenaries didn't usually betray their clients, but something about Lisa's expression made him nervous. "We weren't told we would be fighting humans," he said finally. "We were told this was simple piracy." "Easy money. The Velcrin lied to you," Lisa said. "They knew you were attacking humans. They were trying to hurt us to distract from their other problems." "Other problems?" the Krell asked. "They annoyed one of our diplomats," Lisa explained. "Now he's filing thousands of legal complaints against them. They thought if they attacked one of our stations, it would make us back off." The Krell warrior went very still. "They annoyed a human? They did this while a human was already annoyed?" "Yes," Lisa said. "Why?" "We should not have taken this job," the Krell said quietly. "I fought in the contact wars. I know what happens when humans are annoyed. We surrender, completely, no conditions." Lisa was surprised. "You fought against humans before?" "Yes, 70 years ago. I was young and stupid. We all were." The Krell looked at his fellow mercenaries. "When humans are angry, they fight hard. But when humans are annoyed, they fight forever." "We learned that lesson at great cost." "Smart," Lisa said. "Your surrender is accepted. You'll be held until we can transfer you to proper authorities. For what it's worth, I'm recommending leniency. You were deceived by your clients." "Thank you, Captain," the Krell said. "And Captain, when you report this to your annoyed diplomat, please tell him we did not know. We would never have accepted this job if we knew humans were already annoyed." Lisa left the cargo bay and headed back to the bridge. She needed to contact Jake Morrison. He needed to know what the Velcrin had done. When the communication came through, Jake was still in his conference room with the Velcrin delegation. They were making good progress on the trade agreement. Everyone was being very polite. "Jake," Lisa's voice came through his communicator. "We have a situation." Jake excused himself from the table and stepped into the hallway. "What kind of situation?" Lisa explained what happened at Outpost Charlie. She told him about the mercenaries, about the Velcrin hiring them, about everything. Jake was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was even calmer than before. "Is everyone safe?" "Yes, all 47 miners are alive and well. The station is gone, but we can rebuild." "Good," Jake said. "Thank you for responding so quickly, Lisa. I need to go now. I have some additional complaints to file." "Jake," Lisa said carefully, "the Velcrin are already cooperating. You said you were making progress." "That was before they tried to kill our people," Jake replied. "Now I'm not just annoyed anymore, Lisa. Now I'm very annoyed." Lisa winced. "Should I be worried?" "Not you," Jake said. "The Velcrin should be worried. Very worried." He ended the call and walked back into the conference room. Zekthor looked up hopefully. "Ambassador Morrison, are we ready to finalize the agreement?" Jake sat down at the table. He pulled out his datapad and started typing again. "Actually," he said in his calm, quiet voice, "we need to discuss something else first. It's come to my attention that your government hired mercenaries to attack one of our mining stations. We need to add that to our list of grievances." Zekthor's face went pale. His mandibles started clicking in panic. "We can explain—" "I'm sure you can," Jake interrupted. "But right now I need to file some more complaints. Amy, could you pull up the regulations regarding unprovoked military actions against civilian targets?" Amy smiled her predator's smile. "Right away, sir," the typing resumed. And the Velcrin knew they had made their situation much, much worse. The Galactic Council chamber was full. Representatives from every major species in known space had gathered for an emergency session. The topic of discussion was listed as the human annoyance situation, but everyone knew what it was really about. It was about the Velcrin and the terrible mistake they had made. Elder Shenty, the head of the Galactic Council, floated at the center of the chamber. The Lumina Elder glowed with a soft golden light, a sign that he was thinking carefully about a difficult problem. "We are here," Elder Shenty began, "to discuss the current crisis between the Velcrin Collective and humanity. For those who are not aware, let me explain the situation." The chamber went silent. Everyone was listening. 3 weeks ago, the Velcrin entered trade negotiations with human ambassador Jake Morrison. The Velcrin representatives insulted the ambassador repeatedly, destroyed his property, and generally treated humans with disrespect. Then the ambassador declared that he was annoyed. Several species in the chamber shifted nervously. They knew what that meant. Since that declaration, Elder Shenty continued, Ambassador Morrison has filed over 25,000 legal complaints against the Velcrin. These complaints cover every aspect of Velcrin trading operations for the past decade. Additionally, the Velcrin made things worse by hiring mercenaries to attack a human mining station. A wave of shocked whispers went through the chamber. That was news to many of them. No one was killed in the attack, Elder Shenty said, but the station was destroyed. And now Ambassador Morrison is not just annoyed, he is very annoyed. The question before us is, what should we do about this? High Merchant Zekthor stood up in the Velcrin section. He looked terrible. He had not slept in days. His once shiny shell was dull and his eyes were bloodshot. Honored Elder, Zekthor said, his voice shaking. We have made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. We ask the Council to intervene, to mediate between us and the humans, to help us find a peaceful resolution. The humans have not declared war, Elder Shenty pointed out. Ambassador Morrison is simply filing legal complaints. Why do you need the Council to intervene? Because he won't stop, Zekthor said desperately. Every day more complaints. Every day more investigations. Every day more of our assets are frozen. Our economy is collapsing. Our people are suffering, and all he does is type on his datapad. Ambassador Korvax stood up in the Drexian section. If I may speak, honored elder. Please do, Ambassador Korvax. Korvax's scales were calm and his voice was steady. The Velcrin created this situation through their own actions. They insulted humanity. They destroyed human property. They hired mercenaries to attack human civilians. What did they expect would happen? We didn't know, Zekthor protested. We didn't understand what it meant to annoy a human. That is not an excuse, Korvax said firmly. Every species in this chamber knows the history. The contact wars happened 70 years ago. The persistence incident happened 60 years ago. There have been dozens of examples of what happens when humans are annoyed. The information is public. The Velcrin chose not to learn it. Elder Shenty nodded slowly. Ambassador Korvax makes a valid point. The Velcrin acted without understanding the consequences. However, we still must address the current situation. Does anyone have suggestions? A small voice spoke up from the back of the chamber. It was a representative from the Yix, the species that Carol Martinez had pursued so relentlessly 60 years ago. I have experience with annoyed humans, the Yix said. My great-grandfather was part of the government that stole the human research ship. He spent the last years of his life buried in legal paperwork. What is your advice? Elder Shenty asked. Surrender, the Yix said simply. Completely. Give the humans everything they want. Apologize publicly. Pay restitution. Accept whatever terms they offer. And hope they are merciful. But that's humiliating, Zekthor said. It's survival, the Yix replied. Pride is worthless if your civilization collapses. My people learned that lesson. Now you must learn it too. Elder Shenty considered this. Is there anyone here who has successfully negotiated with an annoyed human? No one spoke. The silence was telling. Finally, Elder Shenty made a decision. I will speak with Ambassador Morrison myself. Perhaps I can help find a resolution. But Zekthor, you must understand something. The Council cannot force the humans to accept anything. If they want to pursue their complaints, that is their legal right. I understand, honored elder, Zekthor said quietly. The meeting ended. Elder Shenty left immediately to meet with Jake Morrison. Jake was in his temporary office on the station, still typing. Amy was there too, organizing files. They had been working for 3 days straight with very little sleep. Ambassador Morrison, Elder Shenty said, floating into the office.
May I have a moment of your time?
Jake looked up. He had dark circles under his eyes, but his expression was calm. Of course, Elder Shenty. Please sit or float, whichever you prefer. Elder Shenty floated near Jake's desk. I have come to ask about your intentions regarding the Velcrin. My intentions are simple, Jake said. I want them to follow galactic law. I want them to apologize for their actions. And I want to make sure they never treat another species the way they treated us. These are reasonable goals, Elder Shenty said, but your methods are quite harsh. 25,000 complaints? And counting, Amy added cheerfully. The Velcrin economy is suffering, Elder Shenty pointed out. Innocent Velcrin citizens are being hurt by these investigations. Jake set down his stylus. You're right. Innocent people are suffering. That bothers me. But do you know what bothers me more? The fact that the Velcrin thought they could insult my species, destroy my research, waste my time, and then hire mercenaries to attack our people without consequences. They didn't understand. They should have, Jake interrupted. His voice was still calm, but there was steel in it. They chose not to learn about humanity. They chose to treat us with contempt. Those were choices, Elder Shenty. Now they have to live with the consequences of those choices. Elder Shenty was quiet for a moment. What would it take for you to stop? Stop filing complaints? Jake asked. Or stop being annoyed? Both, ideally. Jake leaned back in his chair. The Velcrin High Council needs to come here in person. They need to apologize publicly to every human who was insulted or attacked. They need to pay full restitution for the destroyed mining station. They need to agree to fair trade terms with humanity and actually honor those terms. And they need to establish a scholarship fund for human students so that future generations can benefit from what their greed cost us. That is a long list, Elder Shenty observed. It's shorter than the list of their violations. Jake replied, and if they agree to all of this, Jake considered the question carefully. Then I will stop filing new complaints. The existing ones will still need to be resolved, but I won't add to them. And eventually I will stop being annoyed. Eventually, Elder Shenty asked. I'm very annoyed right now, Jake explained. That doesn't just go away instantly. But if the Velcrin show genuine remorse and make real changes, then yes, eventually I will forgive them. Elder Shenty nodded. I will convey your terms to the Velcrin High Council. I suspect they will accept. I suspect you're right, Jake said. 2 weeks later, the Velcrin High Council arrived at the station. There were 5 of them, the most powerful leaders in the Velcrin collective. They came without guards, without ceremony, and without pride. In front of the entire Galactic Council, they apologized to humanity. They apologized for the insults, for the destroyed property, for the attack on Outpost Charlie. They accepted every term Jake had proposed. Zekthor stood before Jake Morrison and bowed deeply, a gesture of complete submission in Velcrin culture. We were wrong, he said. We judged your species without understanding. We acted with arrogance and paid the price. We ask for your forgiveness. Jake looked at the Velcrin for a long moment. Then he stood and offered his hand. Apology accepted, he said. Let's start over. Properly this time. Zekthor took Jake's hand carefully. Thank you, Ambassador Morrison. Thank you for your mercy. Just don't annoy me again, Jake said with a small smile. Never, Zekthor promised. Never again. The agreement was signed that day. Fair trade terms, technology sharing, cultural exchanges, everything that the original negotiations should have been. That evening, Jake finally closed his data pad. Amy looked at him hopefully. Are you done, sir? She asked. I'm done, Jake confirmed. I'm not annoyed anymore. Thank goodness, Amy said. Can we please sleep now? Jake laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. Yes, Amy, we can sleep now. Across the galaxy, species that had been watching the situation breathed sighs of relief. The crisis was over. The annoyed human was satisfied. And somewhere in the Galactic Diplomatic Academy, instructors were already updating their courses. A new lesson was added to the curriculum. Never, under any circumstances, annoy a human. It was a lesson the galaxy would not forget.